catches incoming emails. So when someone sends an email, that's the open port grabs stuff coming in. It checks the recipient of the email to see if the mail is actually destined for this mail server. If it's not, it'll just throw it away. Or if it has like relay functionality, it might pass it along to a different mail server. And then if it is destined for this mail server, it'll pass it along to the mail delivery agent, which will take care of it from there. So the mail delivery agent takes the emails from the transfer agent. It resolves any aliases. So you might have like, I want my CEO at example.com to go to Bob's mailbox, even though Bob might have a different email address. So you could have Bob going to like Bob at example.com. So you can have those multiple addresses going to the same place. Then once it does that, it puts the mail into the actual user's mailbox, where it can be retrieved in this by Dovecot. So Dovecot handles IMAP and POP3. POP3 is the post office protocol. It's sort of an older email protocol. Basically, the way it works is that it thinks of the mail server as like a temporary storage place for your emails. So the user will connect to the mail server, they'll download all their emails, and then they'll delete them off the mail server. So you think of it like the post office. You go to the post office, you get your mail, you take it home. It doesn't stay at the post office. IMAP is a newer protocol, more interactive. So the mail server does like more permanent storage of your emails. So they'll stay there on the mail server, and then the user just logs in, looks at their stuff that's on the mail server. They might copy it to their local machine, but they're not going to delete it unless they decide to do that explicitly. So that's how Dovecot and Postfix work, but obviously email just doesn't magically find its way to your mail server. So we're going to talk a little bit about the DNS workings behind the scenes. I realize we haven't talked much about DNS yet, so give you a quick DNS crash course. So we talked about zones, so that might be like google.com or test.lan. That's like your, those will be zones on a mail server. So not a name server, a DNS server. So the DNS server is going to have some zones that it's authoritative for. So people will come to this DNS server and say, I want to know the IP address of some host, some like domain name. And then this server is going to actually be able to give a definitive answer, like here's the actual IP address for this domain name. So we have a few different records. There's more than these three, but these are the most common ones. So you have your host record, which is called an A record. That resolves a domain name to an IP address. And then you have a name server record, which is kind of glued to any responses that the DNS server gives out. So it'll say, here's the answer to your question, and then also here's the IP address of the DNS server that is authoritative for this zone. So it'll just tell you where to go to actually find out what you're looking for. And then most importantly for what we're doing today, we have a mail record. So the mail record gives a list of mail servers for the domain name. So when someone tries to send an email to an email address, it'll look up the domain of the recipient, and then it'll find the mail servers for that domain. So if I send something to gmail.com, I'm going to do a DNS lookup for an MX record on google.com. It'll return like a list of mail servers that I can send emails to, and then I'll pick one of those and send it off. So MX records basically look like this. You have an @ which is just sort of like a placeholder, which means that this record is for like the root level of this zone. So if I have a zone like test.lan and I put an @ there, that means that I'm looking for MX records on test.lan. And you can do like subdomains and things like that too. Then you have your class. This is for internet. For the most part, just about every DNS record that you actually run into is going to have an internet class. There are two other types, two other classes rather, but they aren't used very often. Most of them are used for like if you want to query like version stuff off of your DNS server or something like that. You aren't going to run into that much. And then finally we have a type MX record, which means it's a mail record, obviously. And then we have a priority number. So the way that clients will actually determine which mail server to send stuff to is that they'll look at the priority numbers of all the mail servers in the list, and they'll try to pick the one that's lowest. And then if they try to go to that and it times out, they'll take the next lowest one, and on like that. And then finally we have the host. And that'll get us where we're going. So let's get into the lab part. I posted this in Slack too. Basically the way this is going to work is that you're going to set up your own mail server. You're all going to be connected to Project's internal O2 so you can talk to each other. And then, so you're going to set up your mail server and then you're going to try to send mails to each other. So we'll start with auth.sh. So let's jump in. So you're going to log into the email box, root password one bang. If you run ls, you'll see an auth.sh script here. You'll run that. And then you're going to type in your credentials for the IA lab here, so you can authenticate with the captive portal. Then if you're successful, you get a user authenticated here. Then once you've done that, there's another script called register.sh. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to register a domain name with my DNS server, which you're all using. And you're going to pick a domain name for your mail server. So I'm going to go with nick.lan. It'll say your domain has been successfully registered. You try to pick one that's already been taken. It'll tell you that it's already been taken. And you have to give it a something.lan, and it's got to be alphanumeric. So something like that is not going to work. Then once you've done that, we're going to jump in and you're going to install Dovecot and Postfix. Then you're going to install some mail utilities and try to send mail back and forth to somebody else. And the guide for setting up Dovecot and Postfix is right here. You should be able to just follow that and get everything set up. Broke it.
Did you put the server?
No, I just have to wait because the.
Can you just use NetStat to figure out which process is using to kill it, right?
It's this one because it died without giving up the socket, and so yeah, I just have to wait it out.
Wait it out or just reboot. It should be.
There we go.
Okay, we good. Well. Awesome.
There we go. So we got cow.lan. So I'll just leave this up here so you can find a mail server to send stuff to. We'll probably go till, say, 6:40, 6:45, and then we'll have Dylan talk about Exchange for a bit. If you have any questions, raise your hand. I'll come around and help you guys.
See if my domain is DNS or... Right. For S.net. register or use an SSL to verify the domain doesn't work?
Okay. Kind of expected that
Oh,
would be there.
it does that. Why is NS looking for it? I find it though. What's going on there? Any ideas?
You have to look up for MX record examples.
So you're not doing any records? That's fine.
Appreciate it. Don't need to.
What
Go
you
look
look
up mail.next time.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Alright. But that's just the host. Yeah. That's just. No, it's not. I'm like. Why is it resulting 15? What's 10.2 to 15.15? What is me? How's that me? Oh, it's PSNs. I don't like the PSNs. My thing's broken. Where is this going? So before we test it, it's not. Forgot. Is no one logging in at all? Oh, that's. Oh no. They use mail instead. I don't like that. That's kind of annoying. So that's interesting. So if you use mail, so mail username at domain should be the domain you want to send it to, correct? Obviously. So I'm trying to send it to root and it keeps going to DSU's mailbox.
Yeah, I think it's redirected down here.
Does everything get redirected to DSU's mailbox?
No,
Just root?
just root, I think, yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So don't check mail for root because it will always claim it as an empty mailbox in here. Just check DSU's instead. At least mine is. I don't know. Yeah, no mail for root. So I don't know. People have it set up. I can find some awesome messages to send you, I'm sure. Do you know if there's a maximum character limit? I've never tried it.
Probably not. I don't know, maybe. Might be. Should be able to send mail to me now if you want to.
Okay. You just using Cal?
Me?
What are you using? Using Nick?
Nick, yeah, NXE.
Maybe yours. I don't know why you said it's a Cal or something.
What?
Send it to your DSU. Yeah, that should be sufficient. Just a test.
It worked.
Yeah, this way. How do you open it? I don't remember. Is it in there? I don't remember. To actually open them up. There's a nice command, isn't
Oh
there?
yeah, you hit one.
Oh, you literally, is it just the mail? You type mail? No, you have to sudo. And then you type mail. And then you just type the number. Or you can just do this. Yeah, okay. Is it, oh, it does say, it does have the number in there too.
Yeah.
Let's get some good stuff. I don't know if these are seen or not. These are my key stuff. Here's all this. Okay, we got a couple. Wait. Okay, no, someone just took me. I thought Kyle was here.
Yeah, no, I found it.
Okay, I don't think most of them rendered properly. I'm just I don't know, Nick. You were telling me what that looks like. Your side. Unfortunately, I don't think most of them rendered properly. Yep, most, no, they're all failing. They're all failing to render properly. It doesn't support Unicode. No, it doesn't support Unicode. No. No, all of them are ruined. I did straight ASCII. I'm disappointed, Nick. Not like copy pasta working. Some of this should work, right? This one will work, right? Because nothing in here is Unicode, right? So that is it? It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
These fish are hot. Just
Oh, it almost works. I'd hoped over a second, Nick. It's not too bad. Just stab her. I'm on it.
That's a shrimp.
I gotta give you something.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's not. Oh god. But okay, no, that's legit because those are your Unicode that's missing. And the model space one. I don't know if I can get that. It's not just about being model space though.
I probably edit one of those to actually.
I probably could. So the the question is how many characters do I have before that? This line right. Almost there. Yeah, I could edit it. It is because I lose a tiny bit off of E is what's killing it. Well, gotta love the refresh.
It's 10 megabytes is the max. That's actually.
Only 10 megs. Well, that's what that you can. Is that enough to DOS with?
not. You have for network lines, you got multiple hard drives as well.
Well, it's enough. But wouldn't it be? I suppose does it have to process the message? It doesn't have to do anything with the messages, though, right?
I just say, oh, this message is too big for this. So just leave it done. I assume there's some sort of address stuff.
No, it's also in the format on the website. And that's gonna be my policy. Because you know what?
Okay. Anybody set up? Maybe send an email to somebody.
Yeah.
Kyle.land set up.
Maybe.
Kyle.
Cow.
Cows. COW. The things that were running around listening.
Didn't you register that?
No.
Oh, why did I think Tristan? Why do I keep thinking you registered that domain name?
Because it's the first one.
Wait, but how? Tristan, it's before mine?
No.
Oh,
You
it's-
registered while
it's-
I broke the thing. No. Registered, I broke it. So these are all new since I restarted.
Oh, okay.
I still think they need to make the one that's just appreciate.
Okay, there we go. Absolutely.
Test.
I sent you a nice one. I sent you a test one. Make sure it works. It's DSU. It's DSU. Everything, whatever you. Got it? No, that's not me. Yeah, open that up. There you go. There you go.
Oh, did you guys?
Yeah, I know, they know I'm official.
But you used the capital letter in there. Sure did. Why you gotta do that? It's not, it should be case sensitive though, right?
No, it's not.
Okay, awesome. Of course, it's the way it makes more sense. What? I will send you some spam. One moment here.
No, it's like,
My
so like, you know.
dark magic. That's some spam. Here we go. That's it. Complete. There we go. And then as a reminder, you'll never see it in root. It has to be DSU. I don't. Nick, do you have any explanation for why that is? Why it's redirected?
Because DCU is like the.
Yeah, you
that
know.
was created by.
You type mail dash u as the username, and then when you're in this thing, you
Yeah, you could.
You're welcome. I'm rich. I actually found the exact email because it's a very common email apparently. I'm very happy. Wait, is it not doing? Is it not paging it? Was it paging it for you or not? Did you have a pager? Was it? Oh, it just paged it and showed you the time. You just put it center out.
Wasn't that much.
Right. Well, it's enough on my screen that my terminal can't see it.
Not mine.
No, mine's the same.
Okay. No, I guess it can. So it's not. It's wrapping differently.
How was yours? It was. Mine was exactly.
Oh, it's literally just wrapping a page. It is. What's going on there? We decided to. No, you're right. It is. Yeah, it's being a little weird. I don't know.
Password one. And the key is account.
Unfortunately, I only have the one spam email come on. I only have the one. I have to find some more. I'm sure I can find some more for you.
Appreciate all this game,
Unfortunately, I don't collect a lot. I'm sure I can make some more. Just do that.
Want some original spam, you have to just copy paste.
No, you will.
So
He wants a Nigerian prince to be saying.
Too much effort.
Gets $1 million.
I need someone to send my money to.
I'm gonna give you some.
All this money, what do you do with it?
There we go. How's more spent? Not very much. It's just copy, you know. It's the thought that counts, right?
Maybe. It is original buy one with better optics.
On your state? I don't know where you at.
You should check your email.
Type in quit.
It depends where he's at. I'm not sure. Yeah, quit actually.
I'm gonna check my email. I got one email. Let's look at okay.
Does it look legit?
I got this.
Wait, okay. Yeah, I went to Calvin.
Yeah, but the
Hey, how do I just message it?
I think you can read that there.
Nope. Not correct.
Question?
I'm not, forget everything. Oh wait, not for.
Well, send it up in the bridge.
I just went. I'm deleting message. Whenever it has that, that's scary, right? It's just
why Vanessa does not delete it? Actually,
You use D.
read them for sure.
So if I use D space 3, does that work?
it's like if I open, let's see, Reddit.
Yeah, mine don't delete either. Yeah.
I don't know. Can you find it, put them out? The issue is the subject, right?
If I go back in.
I don't know where to put it. I don't know where to put it. I mean, you could.
Yeah, that was still there.
Is that just?
But it still works on
Nick, that isn't, like, I have to refresh that to get that to refresh, right? Is that just tailing right now? What is it doing?
Yeah. Well, it's just running.
But I mean, the new domain should be popping up, right? So if I just start sending emails to those people.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Everyone.
Cut shot, check yours and see if you got paid.
I will briefly. But you're not the only person here.
I will check my email now.
I did receive one. Okay, I think that's the accurate one. The columns don't line up either. It's kind of annoying.
No, never mind, there's no columns. There's no columns, they were not. I have 500 emails. They claim to be unread, but I read them. And I have my test email as well. Cool. I suppose I only have one thing to do then.
Okay. So here's the question, can you actually, can you set the subject or anything else from the command?
So Martin, did you get one from your? Did you get 5 from?
There's the subject.
He's gonna have this first part of him.
Yeah.
You just have one.
The subject.
You must have just spammed it. What did you do? Did you
Cut shot, figured it out.
Did you?
Yeah, mine works too.
Okay.
I'm about to.
Stole?
check your emails quick.
He's gonna break it.
I'm not actually starting it yet, but we'll check your emails. Check your emails.
Wow, I got $1 million donation.
Who's Fish are hot? Fish are hot. Dot land, right? It's not sending. I just. Oh no, I didn't do it wrong. Okay, I'll check it. Hold on. Holy crap. No. I did wrong. Okay, I'll try.
I cannot get the
Updated system, I don't think I'll take it.
Now check.
To learn, I wasn't
Oh wait, no. Done it.
No, those are money that you spend on your
Do you have emails?
Yes, you.
Okay.
You guys forced me to
That's working. It's working. I know. I just have to open the file.
Oh, no.
Oh, because I did that. I was really out there.
You're already looking. What's your? Either way, I'm gonna do that shit. I may as well have a slightly.
You use pipe tube for the body, for the subject. Do you actually have bodies in there? Double check. Yeah.
That was a good one.
You should check to see whether you actually get bodies there. Yeah, so I'm just piping it for the bodies. The subject you can specify with the dash S flag if you want to use S flag. So it does work. You just pipe it to the fan, like you were doing. Pipe it with a pipe. Yeah, but why does mine work if I don't do that? Because it's not saying a subject.
I'm gonna do bullet points this time.
Are you,
It's not, oh, it's just saying
it's
body.
probably just doing a blank subject. Let me check. You were doing it to me?
Watch, that's gonna be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah, they all agree. Yeah, sure. Yep, they're all blank subjects.
What's the body say?
Well, assuming this is correct, it's 7. Spam and spammer.
Yeah, that's what the subject.
That's what the subject was supposed to be.
There's nothing after that?
Testing, like arrow left bracket.
Arrow left.
Arrow left bracket. Like left brace, sorry.
Oh, that was just. That's interesting. I was trying to do the escape character, so I escape out.
But you did it wrong.
Oh,
Sure.
I didn't do it wrong, I just did it.
Oh no, we went to sleep. Well, the card can switch over here now.
Yeah.
You have beautiful emails to spend. Send them to spam.land. How'd you even break it? How'd you?
Well, I was trying to do T so that I could put it into a file and then I could see it. I think when you type to T, it doesn't flush the buffer.
It's just more confusing.
So it doesn't output anything. You have to do like a Python dash new, so it's unbuffered. Now it's weird.
This one looks like a lord.
So we never try spamming your server, right?
So nothing.
What does it even do?
No.
We never noticed this. To generate the DNS routers, yeah. What was it using for the bind? Was it just adding the file and restoring the service?
Yeah. And it's, so there's the zone config file. I'm sure you actually.
Because my point is, if you had it, if you constantly registered, wouldn't that work? But you're reloading the service, right? You're reloading it?
Yeah.
Okay. So it should be fine, I suppose.
Yeah. So it checks to see if the domain is already taken and then it writes a zone file. So here in connect records. And then it inserts the zone config into that main image.
But it reloads. If it fails to reload, will it crash? It just won't change, right?
I think it just won't load the zone unless it breaks the like main. If the zone config is broken, it just won't load that zone because it's broken.
Really? Even if you try restarting? Okay, I don't remember how tolerant mine is to zone errors. Because I almost thought the zones were almost just almost more or less included in the main configuration files. I don't know how it does it actually.
We have the zone definition and then the zone file with the actual record.
Yeah. But I was wondering how it was parsing it. If it's separating those calls. Suppose.
Did you see,
Yes. It was up in flames.
Nick, you have approximately 21 minutes left.
Marshall, like burned to the ground.
Right. Dylan, you want to switch over?
Sure.
So mine's gonna be a little bit short. Oh, that is not pretty. Hang on. Resize.
Cody. Cody. This is a new problem. Why is this happening?
if you would just have given me 1080, it would have been fine.
What?
Oh, he didn't have 10. Is that the issue?
Oh, yeah, you'd keep me some corner.
Oh, okay. What?
Drag this over here, and over there, over there, over there.
No.
Line it up.
No. Okay, Nick. Good.
Cool.
Magic.
All right, so now that we got that fixed, show of hands, who has successfully installed Exchange before? We applaud you. Well, I already know you guys. It's not a fun process. I'll talk about it in a minute. So there's a couple important things to know with Exchange. It relies heavily on Active Directory and DNS. If either of those two things break, Exchange is going to break, particularly the Active Directory thing. So the important thing with that is Exchange actually requires an account to run it. And it has to be a part of both the domain admins and the schema admins groups on Windows Active Directory installation. That's just what it needs in order to function. So here's the bad things about Exchange. My demo actually doesn't work. I'll explain that. It broke in the middle of the night last night, and I was trying to fix it, and yeah. So it requires a lot of dependencies. I had to download a couple Windows updates first to even attempt to install it, and then I also had to install or activate all these Windows features. Yeah, the installer kept yelling at me, and then after I finally got all that, it started, but then it broke. So I'll talk about it in a second. So I don't actually have a demo, but I can tell you the things that you need to do. Obviously, the first thing is to change the account password for the account running Exchange. The domain controller can do it. The person logging into the Exchange server as that user account can do it. Just make sure that no one conflicts on what password they're using there, especially if the person running the DC decides to run a script and change all the passwords and stuff like that. So with that, the next thing you're going to want to do are some firewall rules. So inbound, depending on your situation, you might not want some of these. If you're going to be using the Outlook web app that you can get with client access roles with Exchange, you're going to need 80 and 443 for web access. You're going to need 143 and 993 for IMAP, and 110.995 for POP3, and then 25 and 587 for SMTP. So Nick was talking about SMTP and a couple other protocols. Outbound, you'll also need TCP 25 for SMTP, and you're going to need UDP 53 for DNS, and then also obviously Active Directory ports. So that's your 445s for SMB and stuff like that. One cool tool you can download that Microsoft actually makes is an Exchange Best Practices Analyzer. I'm doing this mainly because my demo doesn't work. So this is a thing. If you get a working Exchange installation, you can download that. So last night I started installing, well, yesterday afternoon, I started installing Exchange. And today at 6:48, it's still here. Yeah. So that's fun. In the environment that I have, let me pull this up.
It's a lot of progress.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Flying by.
So I have a DC and another server. They're both server 2008 R2 boxes, and I have the DC running a domain, running DNS, that good stuff. On the DC, I have a couple of users that I was going to email with, Bob Smith and Joe Dirt. Then I have this Exchange admin user. So if you just go to the properties of that, I'll just show that they are a member of the domain admins and the schema admins groups. The Exchange installer actually won't let you install Exchange if the user that you're signed in as isn't part of those groups. It will yell at you. But just because of the permissions and stuff it needs in order to interact with Active Directory. Yes, Schema is a default group in Active Directory. I believe the description does that's really useful. Designated administrators of the schema. So just the forest and Active Directory things, right? So yeah. DNS is also running. Things I did there. I didn't finish setting this up because it didn't install, but I have some records for each of the boxes in here. I have an MX record for the Exchange server itself, so that any system on the network can be like, yo, what's the mail exchanger for corp.lan in this case. Also set up some reverse lookup zones, just because DNS things. On the Exchange box itself, we already know that this isn't working. But basically all I did is I went and downloaded the Exchange 2013 trial that you can get from Microsoft, because right now we don't have an Exchange ISO in the IA lab because of the transition, stuff like that. Eric said he would look for one, so hopefully finds that. But you basically just get this big bunch of stuff, and you run the setup, and it'll tell you what you need to do to make sure that setup continues. And eventually it's supposed to work and get past 0%. But yeah, it's not, so I can't really show that. Exchange is a beast. I'm not a big Linux guy, but I actually prefer Dovecot and Postfix to Exchange because it's easy. So Exchange is supposed to be easy, but I have always had horrible luck with it. So, any questions? Yes.
I say, is Exchange, like, do we always have a problem with Exchange because it's in the IA lab, or just overall?
I've never installed it on physical hardware, so I can't answer that question fully. Just overall? Okay. Yeah. The thing with Exchange is it's actually slowly going away because of Office 365. Microsoft is actually allowing companies to have all their email hosted off-site in the cloud, blah, blah, blah. Microsoft runs the servers then instead. Yeah, so it's going away slowly, and I'm kind of happy about that. You actually can't even get Exchange licenses on the hub anymore because Microsoft is like, no, we want people to use Office 365. So, any other questions? Cool. I will say at National CCDC last year, we were told that we would have a email box on Windows, and I was like, oh god, it's going to be Exchange. This is great. And it actually ended up being some super lightweight, dumb thing that I had never heard of that still had the ability to hook into Active Directory. And basically all I did was like, all right, I'm going to make all these local accounts instead and change their passwords and firewalled it off, and it was pretty good. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I'm kind of sad that Exchange is dumb, but I wish I could have shown you more. Anything else? All right, so you guys can hang out and play with the Dovecot Postfix stuff. Otherwise, that's all we got for tonight. Remember to sign up for the CCDC team. We're doing like tryouts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the sign-up sheet that we put out, remember to do that if you're interested in being on the CCDC team.
Do you guys want to see the